Thank you very much for joining us for another main news bulletin on Camnet TV. To present it, my name is Marco Kozi. Let's take a look at the stories making the headlines. LUSAKA woman arrested for routinely locking her 2-year-old daughter in the house. President HICHILEMA accused of lacking ideas to the country's economic problems. UPND dispels opposition's claims that the country is experiencing a shrinking civic space. And in international news, Kenya's government unveils plans for a nationwide e-bike scheme. And in sports news, the BAROSTE Boxing Academy commences preparations ahead of the international boxing title. For details of these and other stories, join us shortly after this break.
Hello, Camnet TV viewers. I am your pastor, Pastor Chiluba. This week, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, my wife, Pastor Victoria, and I will be joining Dr. Francis Miles and Pastor Nwaka of the Living Waters and Pastor Jeff. The conference will be at the Living Waters Church in Usakile, next to the BP filling station and also Usakile Police Station. You must come for this Courts of Heaven conference. My wife and I will be delighted to see you. May God bless you, and may the Lord keep Zambia. Bye-bye.
Welcome back, and now the news in detail. Education Hope Foundation Executive Director Charles Mubambe has urged the government to prioritize higher education programming in prisons. Mubambe tells Camnet News that this is one of the best ways of reducing ex-inmates reoffending and improve the safety of the communities. Mr. Mubambe says the government needs to increase the budgetary allocation towards correctional education if changes are to be seen. Here's a report.
If education is key to a better life, that may hold double for those who are incarcerated. People who land in prison tend to have low education attainment levels while facing even greater employment challenges when released than those with similar education backgrounds because of the stigma and barriers their conviction carries. Civil society organizations that champion correctional education in Zambia are now calling on the government to prioritize higher education programming in correctional facility, adding that it is one of the best ways to reduce recidivism and improve the safety of communities.
Correctional education must not be a cost to the government, because in thinking so, they are really bringing danger to the citizen of this country, because people will not change in correctional facilities. So, government should consider to reintegrate the Ministry of Education back to correctional facilities. They need to work hand in hand with the Ministry of Home Affairs, because how will transformation be attained? How will the delivery quality of education be attained in these correctional facilities if the Ministry of Education is not involved?
With a high percent of those in a correctional facility eventually returning to the community, stakeholders say the government should be working to ensure that every incarcerated person in the country has access to high-quality, workforce-aligned, equitable post-secondary opportunities with a wide range of educational pathways. Government has further been urged to increase the budgetary allocation toward the correctional education if changes are to be seen.
The government must increase the budgetary allocation towards correctional education in correctional facilities if we are going to see positive change, because these correctional facilities are really struggling in terms of resources. They don't have resources to ensure that there's more infrastructure, to ensure that there are more teacher resources, student resources, and then they need to also increase on classroom blocks, even for those correctional facilities that only rely on funding and some other programs. They need to introduce education in those correctional facilities. But how will this be done? By increasing its resources. Without these resources being increased, there will be a danger of not having to attain the maximum transformation, reformation, and then reintegration will not be a success.
Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
As a Finance Minister, Stumbekom Sokotwani presents the 2024 national budget in the coming weeks, stakeholders are hoping that budgetary allocation to the water and sanitation sector will be increased. In the 2023 national budget, 2.2 billion kwacha was allocated towards water and sanitation, representing 1.4% of this 167.3 billion kwacha budget. And National Water and Sanitation Council NWASCO Chief Inspector Peter Mtale is hoping that the Ministry of Finance will allocate at least 3% towards the water and sanitation sector to improve a service provision. Here's a report.
In the 2023 national budget, 2.2 billion kwacha was allocated towards the water and sanitation sector, representing 1.6% of the 167.3 billion kwacha budget. Given the fact that water is life, people are always in despair whenever the commodity is in short supply or not available at all.
Water is life. Without water, still lives.
What is important now is to mobilize resources. And so as a utility, obviously we are working with the Ministry of Water Development and Sanitation, and also we are engaging through the government, cooperating partners to see how they can support projects to improve water supply in the city of Lusaka.
And Zambia's growing population presents a huge challenge on the need to increase clean and safe drinking water availability, making enhanced funding a solution as justified by non-state actors like the Civil Society for Poverty Reduction, CSPR, who continue to advocate for more resources to be directed towards social sectors.
Made to our creditors that, debt servicing was crowding out social sector expenditure, and had we continued on that trajectory, the living conditions for citizens would have worsened. For us as CSPR, what we therefore look forward in the upcoming 2024 budget is more resources allocated to these social sectors.
We also spoke to Water Aid Zambia Technical Manager Adamson Sakala.
So as you heard from the presentation on the Zambia investment plan, there is the issue of creating jobs in the water sector, or the water investments, the agricultural investments, and all these things that are coming. So that integration tells us that there is something that we can get if invested in water. So more funding needs to go towards the water sector.
National Water Supply and Sanitation Council NWASCO Chief Inspector Peter Mtale is optimistic that once the allocation is increased to at least 3% of the total budget, they will be able to adequately implement the extended mandate of regulating rural water supply and sanitation.
The cost of providing the services have gone up, but without having a tariff that is matching what is expected to cover. So we expect it to be doubled. For us, I think, to have that one. From 1.4% to 3%, I think we're not really demanding for too much. But I think the Ministry of Water, that is the lead ministry in our sector, should be able to provide actually a comprehensive budget proposal that has been made to the Ministry of Finance.
If water is a life-supporting commodity, isn't it obvious that everyone must have access to clean, safe drinking water? Patrick Soko, Camnet News.
Angry residents of Lusaka's Kalekiliki Township united for a just cause affecting a citizen's arrest of an absentee mother who they handed over to the police for allegedly abandoning her 2 children aged between 2 and 10 years old. Helen Chikoti, a hairdresser, was reported to the police by neighbors for locking up her 10-year-old son and 2-year-old daughter in the house every day while she goes for work. Here's a report.
while other children are experiencing their childhood and playing as nature intends it to be. This, however, is not the case for these siblings who have been confined to what can only be likened to a jail cell. These children are being confined in this one-roomed house. Despite it not being a self-contained house, they are forced to answer the call of nature in these containers, hence making the environment unconducive. Angry residents of Lusaka's Kalikiliki Township united for a just cause Saturday morning of effecting a citizen arrest of an absentee mother whom they handed over to the police for allegedly abandoning her 2 children aged between 2 and 10 years old. Ellen Chikoti, an hairdresser, was reported to the police by neighbors for locking up a 10-year-old son and 2-year-old daughter in the house every day while she goes to work.
So na bwana namuza hapo na tiuzi bati mwamene mumakomera bana ba sometimes kungatike incident yo ipa mkati mu nyumba then bonse tingankalilemo affected ati ai mosatangiza satana kusogolo mulungu ndio amena manisungira bana aba na bwana namuleka na toke kansi okutwaona ati nivo ipa bamene nakamba chiri kuri iwe
eri ashiri anifuta maningi efo nakula kitane chama nomba ulengisha muntu mungandarendi afuri okusha report kuli ine pantu abana bamusangosonga bafura munganda report safika kwa ine bula ndasana na mawo kusha abana bamusangoso kimono kwipa abana yonse mitundo yonse dimukatika ngandomo matufi ali munyumbomo bana bata matufi yake ili ba president ni pempa pera mula mtundu so muyanganepo.
Neighbors of this woman say they have been ignoring her for some time, but could not continue after noticing that she was not putting a stop to her habit.
Tunabwera mailo futi, tunabwera ongena, tunapeza bana bali mgriudo, tunabafunsa bana, imwe bana mumankala bwanja, masiye batukomera so chabi. Ninabwira kuri loko niyo komewa. Nati ni chani pali bantu. Anga misieni amikomera mu nyumba inecheve chani baba. Uyu muzimai ngati ni muzimai amanyonsha aziba la kuvutika. Mamai wake mwamene banavutikira pali ebe. Sanga zisisa so. One time stove yalisa yako omuliro spark ababa nanga balipira munganda bantu ababa nakale ambo kuba komena munganda uyu mwana kashi ukweba titiye tulembeshe ku police twali monoko bati chachiramu abana tete bale ikala so kwati na kalimo ni step maza bati ninyina betanga wa monoko bata uko to kusungira abana wabatwala kukuba kuba blue bambo kulaso ngole twala fe support ngole akunchita.
Helen, who had gone to her usual work at the saloon, was later called by the neighbors that she needed to rush home while having no knowledge that officers were waiting for her. Upon reaching home, she was ordered to unlock the house. In her defense, she claimed she had no one to look after the kids. Tension rose among community members as they accused the suspect of being defensive. It was minutes later when officers swung into action and arrested the suspect, while the children were taken into custody of the relevant authorities. Miriam Kaimba, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Government has warned that business owners who have defied the ministerial directive to paint their buildings and put refuse bins on their shops that risk not being issued health permits next year. On the 27th of July 2023, Minister of Local Government and Rural Development Gary Nkombo directed all shop owners in Lusaka Central Business District to paint their buildings and put refuse bins in their trading spaces. Speaking to Camnet News, Local Government Permanent Secretary Administration emphasizes that it is important for business owners and property owners to beautify their places as a way of boosting their businesses. Details in the following reports.
Most buildings in the Lusaka Central Business District remain unpainted, while some continue operating without refuse bins in their shops. This is despite the local government minister Gary Nkombo giving a one-month ultimatum for all property and shop owners to beautify their trading spaces. Simon Chitambala, a property owner and businessman in the CBD, has attributed the lack of adherence to the ministerial directive to lack of implementation by the local authority.
It's one thing to make pronouncements, it's one thing to give directives, but when it comes to the sanctity and the functionality of the city, in particular the CBD, the council needs to be proactive. They need to start going into every major street, approaching every major shop owner, making them aware of this directive that every building, every shop has to have at least a bin in front of them. Everybody has to paint their buildings. If you don't enforce, by enforcing we mean council police going to every shop saying there's this new directive, we are expecting you to comply because it will contribute to the functionality of the city.
However, government has warned of a strong whip against all shop owners who have defied the ministerial directive by local government minister Gary Nkombo on 27th July 2023.
Those who willfully would want not to comply for one reason or another, we have options on how to deal with them, and we will deal with them according to what is provided for by the law. And it means that we are probably not interested in continuing to conduct business. It is a very simple position. And what is also important to note is that this is not in any way a fight or confrontation between government and the business players. It's about ensuring that we are operating in an environment that is sanitary, in an environment that is conducive for doing business, and it's also about having a good ambience in terms of how our trading places are looking.
The onus remains on the shop owners to maintain their trading spaces and beautify their places, and the general citizenry to keep the city of Lusaka clean. Vincent Piri for Camnet TV News, Lusaka.
Police in Lusaka on September 1, 2023 formally arrested and charged Sean Tembo with 2 counts of hate speech contrary to Section 65 of the Cyber Security and Cyber Crimes Act number 2 of 2023. The suspect remains in police custody awaiting court appearance. Deputy Police Public Relations Officer Danny Mwali confirmed this to Camnet News. The United Party for National Development, UPND, is cognizant of the fact that the cost of midi meal and fuel are having a negative impact of the majority poor Zambians, but it is hopeful that the problem will soon be resolved. UPND National Deputy Youth Spokesperson Phineas Pumulo is optimistic that the cost of midi meal, which is fetching between 250 and 300 kwacha, will be resolved once production is enhanced. He acknowledges that during the road shows that President Hakainde Hichilema is undertaking in the marking of the 2 years anniversary of the party in office have seen people complaining about hunger. He says they take it as feedback from the people and that something must be done urgently, but that it is also a demonstration of the UPND being a tolerant administration to divergent views.
It's a cost-effective thing. The dollar this time is not stable. So we are hopeful that prior to the month that we have started, we are going to see again the reduction, because I believe that what is making the fuel price to go up, it is because of the instability of the currency, which is the dollar. This is something that people need to understand, that the dollar is an international currency. So somehow we also have no control over it. That is what is costing this thing. And then it's one of the things that it's also making our people also clear that fuel are dura. That's what people are crying. But we know that we are going to stabilize the currency. It's one of the major things. There are two things that people are expecting us to do. They're expecting us to make sure that we stabilize the economy. People want to buy cheap meal, of which we are working towards that. We can guarantee the Zambian people that we are going to make sure that the price of meal reduces from where it is right now. And people also need to understand that in Southern Africa, Zambia it is the country that is selling the cheapest meal in Southern Africa. But as leaders, we should also take responsibility when people complain. People have come to us, have complained, and we have listened to them, and we are working to reduce the price of meal in our country. In our country has gone up, and as a party and the government, we are working tirelessly to make sure that we reduce the price of meal in our country. We need also to acknowledge one thing, that people voted for change. This is why we are very happy as a party to see that we have seen some people brandishing to Mapamela, to Saladi, to protest that the price of commodity has gone up.
All People's Congress Party leader Nason Musoni has challenged President Hakainde Hichilema to consider stepping down as he has failed to run the affairs of the country. Mr. Musoni says the president has resorted to arresting opposition leaders because he has no message of hope for the Zambian people who are faced with economic hardships. He states that President Hichilema now relies on state-sponsored terror and the use of police to maintain himself in the office. Mr. Musoni adds that the president has become frustrated now that he has clearly sensed defeat at the next polls in 2026.
The idea of a president talking even to a small crowd is that through the small crowd he will be able to reach out to the greater part of the nation. You are basically speaking to the nation, and what our citizens are expecting are what the UPND government is doing to address some of the challenges that our people are facing, such as the rising cost of living. In particular, the high cost of minimum. You can't just say I've appointed a committee to look at this or government to address those. What exactly are you doing? Now, there's a danger here that we are running into failure, that this government has run into failure and is unable to give the solutions or a new direction to our country. What our citizens were expecting, what people expected from change, was that we were going to head in a new trajectory and do things differently. Okay, but what we are doing now, what we are seeing from this government is the opposite. It has concentrated in investing more money into apprehending and arresting opposition leaders, for merely providing checks and balances. Insofar as these matters are concerned, it would appear that of all the governments that we have had in this country, the UPND government has demonstrated that it's intolerant, that does not accept dissenting views, that anybody who criticizes the government or the president should be arrested.
Nominated Member of Parliament Likando Mufalali has charged that claims by some opposition political players that the political space under the UPND is shrinking are baseless. Mr. Mufalali says politicians are shrinking their own spaces by issuing careless statements, which he says must be blamed on opposition politicians themselves. Meanwhile, governance activist Wesley Meander has called for coexistence between the government and the opposition leaders. The last 2 years of the United Party for National Development, UPND, has seen the arrests of opposition political leaders, 3 of whom have been arrested in the last 21 days. Here's a report.
The 2 years of the United Party for National Development UPND government has seen the arrest of political opponents, among them Socialist Party leader Fred Membe, Patriots for Economic Progress leader Sean Tembo, Edith Nawakwi, among others. This has led to Citizens First Party leader Harry Kalava to accuse the government of shrinking the political space in the country.
While the UPND government was voted in office at the back of addressing the intolerance that characterized the previous government's cadres and use of the police to harass innocent citizens, it is amazing that we are seeing the same level of political intolerance under the UPND government, even worse. For a president that condemned the abuse of the police service, it is inconceivable that he can resort to using the same approach to try and frustrate his perceived political enemies.
But nominated Member of Parliament Ilikando Mufalali says opposition political leaders are shrinking their own spaces by their careless statement.
The democratic space is not shrinking in any way. If anything, it's enlarging. Actually, it's been enlarged, it's being cultivated and watered properly for the benefits of the likes of Mr. Kalava and other people that want to participate in political space. So this space is being widened. Remember, we had a situation before where we had the democratic space shrinking based on the activities that the ruling party were doing then.
Meanwhile, governance activist Wesley Meander highlights the need for political leaders, both those in government and those in opposition, to coexist.
We have of late seen a lot of arrests and detention of opposition leaders by the law enforcement agents. And this actually has been deemed as a way of persecuting political players. Now, it is not settling well, and as Zambians, we are not seeing it as a good thing to see our police officers pursuing political leaders, especially on the opposition, where we have a lot of them that are getting arrested, such as Dr. Membe, Dr. Sean Tembo, and many others. We are saying there's need for us to see how best we can handle the situation. Let's learn to coexist, the opposition and the ruling. These are our leaders who can easily sit down and look at things that are affecting a common Zambian. It's not a taboo for President HICHILEMA and Dr. Mumembe and many other opposition leaders to sit down on the round table and discuss issues that can help Zambians. What we are seeing now is a two-way thing. One, we have the law enforcement agents who are overdoing things by arresting and detaining the opposition leaders. We also have the same opposition leaders who are coming out carelessly to issue alarming statements, to insult, to abuse the freedom of expression.
As it stands, on Friday, 1st September 2023, police formally arrested and charged PEP leader Sean Tembo with 2 counts of hate speech, contrary to Section 65 of the Cyber Security and Cybercrimes Act No. 2 of 2023, and remains in police custody awaiting court appearance. Vincent Piri for Camnet TV News, Lusaka.
The former opposition Patriotic Front Sikongo District Chairperson Mwangala Sikongo says the country will soon become food secure. Speaking when he led 393 PF defectors, Mr. Sikongo says he is impressed with the farming inputs have already arrived in the district, unlike the trend during the past regime. Meanwhile, UPND Secretary General Batuke Imenda says President Hakainde Hichilema's desire is to see an educated generation which is motivated and introduce the introduction of free education policy.
Of people treated as visitors, from today onwards you are full members of the party. You will end the benefits of being members of the UPND like everyone else. As I'm speaking to you right now, our party has been in power for the past 2 years. But I'm very impressed. Before I was allowed time to come and speak here, you heard for yourselves the kind words coming from the people that are coming from PF. I was very impressed to hear that within a space of 2 years, people are comparing the best development delivered by President HICHILEMA and the New Dawn government. People talked about schools, construction of schools, construction of clinics, and improvements on hospitals. The reason for President HICHILEMA to declare free education is clear and straightforward.
On that note, we break for some commercials. We have more news coming up. Don't go away.
You know I can take her a bit.
Yes, my dear.
I was thinking of getting you a Bugatti on your birthday.
Really?
I'm quiet. My name is Yana.
Don't worry, man. That's why there is insurance.
Insurance?
You heard me.
Not just any kind of insurance, but Savenda General Insurance, a company that offers superior customer service, highly professional and dedicated staff. We are not just any insurance company, but an insurance company that actually pays our claims. We cover, among others, fire, marine, aviation, engineering, agriculture, motor vehicle, and miscellaneous insurance. So, live life to the full, knowing that Savenda General Insurance has got you covered. Savenda General Insurance. Insurance excellence.
Deborah, have you connected to the Wi-Fi on the bus? It's fast, it's amazing. I've just downloaded my books and I'm about to complete the series. It's nice, too, me.
No, I'm actually watching a reality show. He's about to propose. Oh, so sweet.
Make your trip seem short yet comfortable and safe when you use the UBZ luxurious fully air-conditioned coaches that come fitted with amazing onboard entertainment, passenger information services, coffee-making facilities and fridge for your hot and cold beverages, free and interrupted Wi-Fi for your gadgets, phone charging facilities, comfortable seats that recline to offer extra resting posture, safety seat belts, adjustable reading lights for each traveling client, and of course, clean flushing toilets for your convenience. So travel in luxury and safety with UBZ luxurious coaches. UBZ will always take you there.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner.
Hello, Camnet TV viewers. I am your pastor, Pastor Chiluba. This week, on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, my wife, Pastor Victoria, and I will be joining Dr. Francis Miles and Pastor Nwaka of the Living Waters and Pastor Jeff. The conference will be at the Living Waters Church in Usakile, next to the BP filling station and also Usakile Police Station. You must come for this Courts of Heaven conference. My wife and I will be delighted to see you. May God bless you and may the Lord keep Zambia. Bye-bye.
Welcome back. We continue with the news. The Zambia Congress of Trade Unions, ZCTU, has called on the Ministry of Labour to enforce labour laws if workers are to be protected. ZCTU President Blake Mulala notes that most workers, especially in the private sector, are being exploited. Mr. Mulala cites game rangers and security guards among many other workers who work under harsh conditions and paid below the minimum wage.
For us as a country to achieve the decent work agenda, there is need for increased labor inspections from the Ministry of Labor. This increased labor inspection can only be achieved if through the national budget, the Ministry of Labor is given the allocation of more resources through the national budget. The Ministry of Labor needs more funding for them to carry out this function, because this is the ministry responsible for economic activities in our country. The people who drive the economy are the workers, and these workers are falling under the Ministry of Labor. We have other places where they have not gone to. For instance, we are looking at tour operators. These are people who are in lowers and bays. Most of them are foreigners. These have got no regard to the labor laws we have in this country. They live in their own world. Yet they charge the tourists who go in these areas. The charges are too high. But look at the condition of service for the people who are working in these game management areas. Their conditions are pathetic. So we urge government to, and even the district commissioners who are in these areas, how do they look at the investors who work into their areas? They must show keen interest to know how the Zambian workers are being treated by these foreign investors, whether they are given decent work. Are they being taken care of? Look even at the accommodation in the farm areas. When we go around, we took a tour of duty around. We checked some of the accommodation, the structures where the farm workers are sleeping are of the Stone Era age. And we call again, the Ministry of Labor must now look beyond the urban areas to go into these rural areas to see how the workers are being treated. Maybe this is the reason why we cannot achieve more economic growth at a time when we need to, because the drivers of the economy are not motivated.
Kalumbira Town Council Chairperson Shadrack Mujunga has called on the youths to take advantage of government skills development empowerment programs. Mr. Mujunga explains that government has provided a number of opportunities for struggling youths to acquire knowledge through Constituency Development Fund, CDF. He says youths who intend to attain skills but cannot afford to sponsor themselves must apply for the CDF.
Let us take advantage of these resources so that we educate our youths, we educate our children, because tomorrow, I'm telling other people to say, CDF, it has come as a trap to us. 10 years down the line, coming 10 years, after 10 years, somebody who is not educated, somebody who has got no skill, will not even be entertained in any form of employment, because you'll be asked the question as the Bible, as God is going to ask us during that time to say, wajinga pi, kime kiatika ka kiafunzirenga bakwenu. Those who are even lucky, who are even in the formal employment, they are grade 7, they are dropout, it's their time. But as this generation, we have free education, we have this scholarship coming from CDF and others. Let us take advantage, let's take our children so that we are going to be happy. As the council chair, I receive a lot of youths coming to our office, even just being a cleaner. My question is, how many cleaners am I going to take to Kalumbira mine, to where? The people of Colombia, are we just going to be cleaners? No. They are graduating. Where do you expect them to go? As contractors, as the companies in Kalumbira district, please, let's take advantage of our youths. Let's give them employment. I know that if others are saying, no, they are big machines, we can't risk giving it to a graduate. But how can they know? Somebody has got where to start from. I know each machine, there's also somebody who's operating that machine. Let these graduates also work closely to the one.
The Monze Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society has accelerated value addition of processing raw milk into yogurt, lacto and pasteurized milk in a bid to fetch higher prices for their dairy products. Monze Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society chairperson Geoffrey Monkombwe says his dairy society currently produces 400 liters of raw milk per week into various value-added products. Mr. Monkombwe observed that the Monze Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society received a grant of 2 refrigerators from the German Agency for International Cooperation, GIZ, supported by Green Innovation Centers for the Agriculture and Food Security Project to ease operations. Here's a report.
The Monze Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society has accelerated value addition of processing raw milk into yogurt, lacto and pasteurized milk in a bid to fetch higher prices for their products. Monze Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society chairperson Geoffrey Monkombwe says his dairy society currently processes 400 liters of raw milk per week. Mr. Mkombwe observed that the Monze Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society received a grant of 2 refrigerators from the German Agency for International Cooperation, supported Green Innovation Centers for the Agriculture and Food Security Project to easy operations.
We process raw milk into yogurt, lacto and pasteurized milk. We currently process 400 liters of raw milk per week.
Gift Kamanga is an accountant with the Monze Dairy Farmers Cooperative Society.
Processing plant that we received as a grant from the Green Innovation Center. Yeah, so this is the milk pasteurizer and then this is the packaging machine.
And Southern Province Permanent Secretary Dr. Namani Monze implored the cooperative to apply for funds from the Citizens Economic Empowerment Commission to purchase a homogenizer and other equipment.
You write an application to CEC for a homogenizer and whatever you want, so that maybe we can support this cooperative to move from this level.
Reporting, Lawrence Kabutu in Monze, Southern Province.
We take another set of commercials. Still ahead, we have international and sports news. Don't go away.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner.
The government of the kingdom is the most powerful government in all of the universe. God appointed days and assignments for you to do long before your mother and father came together. So God spoke to me, Francis, the court of heaven is a very powerful place. It's a dimension in the spirit realm that my people can step into by faith and win battles against the devil.
There's at least 76 times where the Bible talks about that God is the judge of all the earth. So therefore, we're talking about the courts of heaven that is in the spiritual realm, not in the natural realm.
What God is about to do at Grace and in South Africa, I caught it. Therefore, what did I do? I believed. After I believed, I have announced. After I have announced, you and I are going to do what? Pray it into being in the natural.
The purpose of you knowing how to get into the courts of heaven and win the cases is not just for the sake of winning. It's for you to go to another level. To go to another level.
We have made prayer more complicated and difficult than what it is because we have not realized
that this is a key element of our prayer life, that we pray that which were purposed so that grace can accompany and we can succeed and you can live a fulfilled life. And the heavens are pleased because that's what they fashioned us for.
Welcome back, and now in international news, 16 men and 2 women suspected of being part of a gang that robbed armored vans were killed on Friday in a shootout with South African police in a rural northern region. Officers approached a building where the gang was operating and the suspects opened fire, which they retained according to local police. Here is now a roundup of international news.
The Kenyan government unveiled plans to roll out electric motorbikes across the country on Friday. President William Ruto said Kenya currently had 1,000 of these new e-bikes with another 10,000 on their way, and that African startup Spiro had established a plant with the capacity to assemble 1,000 of the vehicles daily. The initiative with Spiro was announced just days before President Ruto hosts the first Africa Climate Summit in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi.
I am delighted to preside over the launch of the Africa Smart Mobility Solutions Kenya Limited by Spiro, an e-mobility giant with a track record of success stories in electric vehicle industry whose footprint spreads from Benin to Togo all the way to Rwanda.
The East African nation generates most of its energy from renewable sources such as hydroelectric and geothermal power, yet the country suffers from frequent power cuts.
The adoption of electric mobility is a high priority intervention to address the challenges of pollution, adverse health effects, and fuel costs, which raise the cost of living. Successful transition of e-mobility requires a fundamental reconfiguration of our transportation systems through electrification and the provision of every necessary service and infrastructures throughout the ecosystem.
Although Africa contributes only 3% of global greenhouse gas emissions, it suffers disproportionately from climate change, according to the UN. 16 men and 2 women suspected of being part of a gang that robbed armored vans were killed Friday in a shootout with South African police in a rural northern region. Officers approached the building where the gang was operating, and the suspects opened fire, which they returned, according to local police. Our officers, together with the Special Task Force, PCI, Crime Intelligence, TRT, intercepted them at the residence, and that's when they started firing at law enforcement officers. The shootout started at around 1 p.m. this afternoon, and the police returned fire. The shooting lasted about an hour and a half. It was a war. When it finally ended, we found that 16 men and 2 women had been killed. The gang was suspected of robbing armored vans used for carrying cash from banks and had been under surveillance for days. 4 other suspects were arrested at a separate location. Our officers are still working with crime scene forensics, but at least 7 rifles were found so far. We will know more about the number of guns found after our officers are done working on the scene. We can confirm that bombs usually used in crash-in-transit crimes were also found. Some of them found placed in strategic areas of the residence to avoid them going off accidentally. Cash-in-transit heists are a common and often violent crime in South Africa, and the criminals who pull them off are usually heavily armed.
Thank you very much. And now in sports news, the BAROSTE Boxing Academy has announced its commencement of preparation ahead of the international boxing title against the Malawian boxer Pirilani Ngoleka scheduled to take place in November 2023. Speaking during a press conference held at Zambian Touch in Mongu, BAROSTE Boxing Academy champion Chana Nyambe said Catherine Muliata is going to be the first ever woman from Western Province to compete in this tournament. Meanwhile, Catherine Muliata said she is ready for the tournament against her opponent. Here's a report.
Our champ, we're preparing her to fight the international non-title on November, next month. As the first tournament in our region, Western Province, and this is to inform all stakeholders and everybody everybody to say the BAROSTE Boxing Academy is about to host the tournament that will be scheduled on November, this next month. And this is the first ever thing. We're here to change the game, and we want to show the people that Western Province also is dominating in terms of boxing sport. So our budget for this tournament is 750,000 that we're budgeting for the tournament, so that we exhibit her, and then we prepare her to fight about 2 or 3 fights, international ones, and then we prepare her to go and fight for the WBC. As a first day, we can do it in LUSAKA, and the next one we will bring it in after the title fight for the WBC. I think it will be here in Monga. We are calling on to all business facilities and well-wishers to come on board and support this initiative, so that we can make it a move.
For the tournament, since the time I got this belt until now, I've always been in the gym, so I'm very ready for the tournament. So I know that I'll get more higher and higher.
That's it. That's all we had for the news. But before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made the headlines. LUSAKA woman arrested for routinely locking her 2-year-old daughter in the house. President HICHILEMA accused of lacking ideas to the country's economic problems. UPND dispels claims that the country is experiencing a shrinking civic space. And in international news, Kenya's government unveils plans for nationwide e-bike schemes. And in sports news, BAROSTE Boxing Academy commences preparations ahead of an international boxing title. Before we go, we now look at the Camnet verse of the day, which comes from the book of Exodus, chapter 34, verse 21, which reads, 6 days you shall labor, but on the 7th day you shall rest. Even during the plowing season and harvest, you must rest. That's it. That's all we had for the news. Don't forget to join us for another bulletin. On behalf of the entire news team, have a blessed night.